All
Oh,
right, awesome. So, welcome everybody. This is our fireside chat for June, and this is our first chat that's families talking to families. So, we had Mike Hipple on a couple months ago, and Mike's in the room with us today too. But now we're going to have Jenn and LJ share their AAC journey with us. And then, of course, give all of you some opportunity to answer questions, or excuse me, ask questions. Um, so I'm going to be quiet and turn it over to Jenn and LJ and let them get started.
thank you, Tana.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. I am LJ. This is my mom, Jen. My hobbies are baking, cooking, fixing things, watching YouTube videos on Pear Deck, Narpod and other teaching tools, cars and adaptive skiing. I have CP on my right side. I also have CVI, which is worse when there's low contrast. I would not be as good at using my AAC tonight without my awesome team of speech therapists. Oh, I almost forgot. I'm using an Accent 1000 with Unity 84 sequence. Mom, tell them about your AAC parenting experience.
Sure, LJ. I'd say that our journey started when LJ was very young, with an SLP who practiced prompt techniques. At that early stage, we were really primarily focusing on his voice and on feeding skills and on oral motor skills. So when we brought him home from the hospital, he still had his nasal gastric tube. And I think that added a lot of challenges and difficulties to, he had some aversions and things going on with his mouth and his face. And I think from that point on, then we started to focus on his communication. And in order to communicate with us, we laminated photos of loved ones and symbols that we got from Boardmaker. We had those on a ring that we attached to his stroller and his wheelchair, and he would point to them to whatever he was feeling or wanted to say. And to keep those organized, I had a big 3-ring binder that I had Velcro pages, and so we would organize them accordingly. Preschool was great. We had first used John Donston switches to interface, and then from there, we sort of started experimenting. The school that he went to for preschool was called the Integration Station. There were several children with disabilities in the program, but they were all in a regular classroom and pushed into the regular classroom along with specialists. And at that time, we also used an iPad with Proloquo Go. And it was quick when LJ sort of grew out of Proloquo Go, where his vocabulary was, his needs were more than what Proloquo Go could provide for him. So towards the latter part of preschool, both his special education teacher and his speech therapist had him trial Tobii Dynavox and I believe Speak for Yourself, as well as the PRC accent and Words for Life. So from there, because some of LJ's fine motor difficulties and various sort of accuracy and efficiency things, we ended up using key guides and key guards. And after we received the full evaluation, we applied for and got funding for, and then received eventually, it's a long process as families and speech therapists Eventually he received his first dedicated speech device at the age of 5.5. And you are 12.5 now. So, and I say dedicated speech device for some of the families because they might have a school iPad that they've received. And so the difference between the school iPad or an iPad and the actual dedicated speech device is that it's really just for his communication. It's not really to play games and all of the other things that iPads might be used for, although it does have a few games that it does. So did I cover everything?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to say something?
Mom, I want to tell them about my first accent 1000. At first, I used Unity 24 sequenced. We did well with that, and I graduated to Unity 45 sequenced. But it didn't quite last 4.5 years. The device kept on freezing and unexpectedly shutting down, which was super annoying because I had no way to communicate. We sent it back to PRC several times, but it could not be fixed. It also could not download or upload software updates. So my mom put a lamp on my iPad to use as a backup. Now I can code switch between sometimes using Unity, lamp, words for life, and I also have adapted signs. It was a good time to trial a larger device due to my vision, and my left thumb and pointer finger were getting hurt from overusing them. But we had a difficult time getting our insurance to approve a new device because it was under 5 years. I don't know who makes those rules, but they should be different for little kids who have devices that tend to get dropped and beat up much faster than an adult's SGD. It took an entire year to get a new device. Mom, do you want to tell people about my journey with spelling?
I would love to. But LJ, I want to ask you if you remember the other thing that your old device did. It would frequently be finicky, and the volume would either go completely off or all the way to full tilt. And it would sound like he was yelling at you or his teacher or wherever it was that he was. And I remember driving and he was behind me and I couldn't see what he was physically doing. And I was like, LJ, did you turn your volume all the way up? Are you shouting? And he's like, no, I didn't do that. I can't. It's got a mind of its own. As you can imagine, in school, in the classroom, that was problematic. So it would do various things like that. And the amount of time when it did accidentally not accidentally, but it would shut down because of this glitch, it would take a prolonged amount of time to actually power back on. And so by the time it would power back on, LJ was pretty much over whatever thought or message he had wanted to say. Okay, you looking at all, okay, yeah. Oh. So to speak a little bit about what LJ asked me to speak about, which was his spelling, I think I'm going to double back a little bit. I would say, just like all of us, our vocabulary has gotten better with each passing year. And so we used to not have all of the words or the symbols appearing on LJ's screen, just so that he could really master a specific, those are the transcripts, honey. So it's those are the closed captions. So they're saying, typing what we're saying. Get it? sorry, he's enamored by the technology.
It distracts me too, LJ. I totally understand.
So as we've all experienced, our vocabulary has only gotten more enhanced. The more we get to read, the more we get to talk with others. And so I think that's really fair to say that with LJ being an AAC user, communicator, his vocabulary is still getting honed and still it's still evolving. That being said, when he was an emergent communicator, he really relied on yes, no. Those were sort of what he was comfortable with and effective with in terms of communicating his wants, his needs, his objections, and so on and so forth. And then when he was in the county-wide program that was specifically designed for communications, he was surrounded by a cohort of other peers who were AAC users. And I think that provided kiddos and students that understood the frustrations that other AAC communicators have. It also provided modeling and mentors. It was a mixed group of ages. So when LJ was an emergent communicator, there was several of the older kiddos in his cohort that were more advanced with their devices. And they use a myriad of low tech modalities, high tech modalities, Tobii Dynavoxes, Speak for Yourself. The county tends to use Words Lamp for Life for many of the kiddos on the county provided iPads. And then of course, LJ uses an accent with Unity. So unfortunately this year, the county is probably gonna terminate or cancel our communications program, which we're still fighting to get them to reverse that. At least for the emergent communicators, it had a much lower staff ratio for children, and then that academic support as well. All that being said, it was a win-win situation. As Tana had also said, what a fabulous thing. It from an emotional learning standpoint was fabulous. It really allowed them to interact with peers and to have the peers understand what pause and wait time needed to be provided when there was small group work in the regular classroom. The peers who were accustomed to the AAC communicators would provide lead time, or if too many students were jumping in and just sort of blowing and breezing by, some of them who were attuned and sensitive would say, oh, well, what does LJ want to say? What does he think about that? And so they've learned from a very early stage to draw these kiddos in so that their voices weren't silenced. And then I would say that from honing his voice in terms of the actual grammar and phonetics and language piece of this, he was so focused. LJ at that stage was really intensely learning the language on his specific device and learning the location of the buttons. And so it is still a work in progress I love the phonetics page of his device, and it's wonderful, and shout out to our SLPs and our special educators and our teachers, but he's 12 and a half, and we're still kind of catching up on digraphs and phonetics and sound blends, things that when kids are learning alphabet sounds, they're able to produce, but because LJ's apraxia, he's just not able to reliably produce those. So, you know, I think that he's very much still catching up, and we're seeing how that affects the communication breakdown when he's trying to talk with us and he's going to the technique that he's been taught to use word prediction, but he's not able to spell it in the way that the device and the software engineers have programmed it. It will not come up with anything close to what he in his mind wants to say. So it's a little bit harder, but something that we're still grappling with at 12 and a half as we age and go into middle school. What else? He has CVI, which I think he briefly touched on. We had collaborated with Sandy Newcomb, who is one of the specialists on the East Coast. And she helped us really figure out how to describe the symbols' salient features and to distinguish and sort of change some of the screens so they were less cluttered. And that was a huge game changer as well. And just even changing the background color so that the text or the font was now white on a darker background enabled LJ to start to really pull out letters and distinguish the letters. And now we have an IEP goal that is when writing, he'll correctly spell the consonant with digraphs, PH, for example, in graph, or QU, for example, in quaint. And it's not necessarily all the time. Like, for instance, our speech therapist, we are focusing on speed and actually efficiency with the symbols. And then we're on a separate occasion, we're not so focused on the symbols and finding the buttons, but we're focused on how to correctly spell so that word finder.
I think.
Yes, tell us what you think.
We are ready to start the and I think we're ready to start the Q&A.
In other words, Mom, be quiet.
Did you just give your mom the gong?
I think we're ready to start the Q&A.
Yeah, I hear you. Boring. Mom's boring.
All right, well, we'll take a minute and let everybody think about their questions. If you have a question and you want to pop it into the chat, go ahead. Otherwise, you can also turn your mic on.
Oh, looks like Jamie has a question.
Go ahead. Actually, my son has a question for LJ because he's a student in high school. He's about to go to high school, and our high school has some other AAC users. So he has a question.
LJ, as I go into high school, what is a question that I can ask AC users when I first meet them?
Awesome. Just like starting a talking point. Use that some sentence start awesome. Just like starting a talking point, use some sentence starters.
I'll elaborate on that a little bit. I think it's awesome that your high school does that. Conversation starters, things that you, when you're hanging out or invited to a dinner, would think to ask anybody else, just, what are you most looking forward to this year? Or do you have any favorite teams? Anything like that would sort of just break the ice. That would be an icebreaker. And then of course the pause time, just knowing that it takes an AAC user much longer to write than you or your peers with paper and pencil. So for LJ to type the word movements, it's actually 2 hits, where for you and I, it takes 1 second to say movements. So just sort of having that in mind or in the background, but awesome. I love that. I love that you have a bunch of AAC users that are going to be at your high school.
Like,
Thank you,
have a
Ethan.
question.
LJ.
Hey, can I jump beside?
I have a question. Where do you live? Because nowhere that I know of they have a program for little children for AAC and early children outside of school.
I live in Arlington.
So there's a bunch of Arlington, so you have to specify which Arlington you live in.
Virginia. It's a great school system. Virginia is a great school system.
Can I expand on that a little bit, Mike? I think it was Mike that asked the question.
Yeah.
Okay. So it used to be pre-K through 5th grade. Just last year, they downgraded it from, I think the emphasis changed when they realized that literacy and language in the early stages was really crucial. So they shifted focus to, that's too many, that's like more than 5, 6. They shifted to pre-K through 2nd grade and tried to just really focus and hone in on that. The program is fabulous because it was separated into 2 classrooms of 6 students. It was 1 dedicated speech therapist from the county and 1 special education teacher and 2 aides for every 6 children who were emergent communicators. And so they would push into whatever I'm trying to rephrase how I say that. It's a regular classroom. So they would push into the regular classroom with one of those aides and then the special education teacher or the speech therapist, depending on whatever it was. And if they needed OT or vision services or anything like that. So it is a fabulous program, and we're still really trying to preserve it and save it. I think that moving to the regular classroom in our county, at least, where class sizes are jumping up to 20 students, and speech therapists have 55 and upward students on their caseload, it's really a disservice to kiddos that are trying to really get a handle on communicating with whatever their software and whatever their language system is. Just, it is a unique program. And LJ was, you were lamenting a little bit ago that he wishes there were more of these in more counties across our country, because it would be fabulous. So I hope that answered your question, Mike.
LJ, can I just ask you a question? I'm in Australia, and once upon a time I worked with a brilliant lady in AAC.
Yes.
Who established a rapport really quickly with everyone she worked with. And what she did was she never looked at the moms and dads when they came into the reception, into the waiting room. She always looked at the person who was there with their AAC device. And that was one tip I learned. Is there anything that you have found that speech therapists could do better? That's a big question. Okay.
This is hard, and because my speech therapist is awesome. This is hard because my speech therapist is awesome. I'm going to have mom help. I'm going to have mom help.
But it's your experience. What does Miss Amy do that has made your session so much fun? Seem like less work.
Games. And I have one up. Games and I have one up.
Which game? Story cubes? Blurt? I don't know if you know or have this game Blurt in Australia, but here in the US, the judge reads a card, and depending on where you land, they give a cue. And the cue is, for instance, the joint connecting the foot and the leg.
Yes.
Yeah. So you split it, and you don't get penalized if you if you say the wrong thing, but if you hit it and you get ankle. And so it really kind of directs you to all of the buttons. It's been fun, and she plays lots of other games. And I think that having it be joyful and not feel the intensity, because it's so energy consuming, and there is so much, especially when there's other factors besides just the apraxia or the being nonverbal. That it does start to be like when something is doing really well in our circumstance, at least, something else then kind of takes the back seat. And if it's a physical thing, if it's physically taxing, then sometimes he's less verbal or less, using less words on his AAC. Is that fair to say?
Jay.
Thanks, LJ. I think that's important because so often I think
Okay.
we resort to worksheets and
I
question
love
answers. So
You
yeah,
have
just to help us relax and have fun and still feel that we're doing work.
Yeah,
speech.
Thank you,
thank
mate.
you.
Okay, looks like we
Therapist.
have a question now.
On that plays games and all of that stuff equal sign $. LJ, I love you have a great speech therapist that plays games and all of that stuff. I believe that is AACcessible thing. Speech language pathologists need to do. And also, they need to think about AAC differently. It's about developing language and having fun doing that. LJ, I love you have a great speech therapist that plays games and all of that stuff. I believe that is a key thing speech language pathologists need to do. And also they need to think about AAC differently. It's about developing language and having fun doing that.
Thank you, Chris. The mutual admiration club is there for you. What other games can we suggest that we love? We love story cubes. If you guys aren't familiar, you want to hold it? Story cubes. So you roll, there's 6 dice, 6? Yeah. And you roll them and whatever it lands on, you have to incorporate it into your story. So it helps with talking around subjects and things like that. LJ's buddies from Camp Chatterbox also talk, they play the compliment game. And anybody can do that, like instead of like dissing something, but like you have to compliment each other and you get the last, the best compliment in. So that's a kind of fun one. Headbands is a great one.
We have headbands and we also have the cubes, but ours are on squidgy.
Oh,
So
I love that.
Yeah, they're easier to hold and throw. Okay. And what I've done is, I don't know if you have T2 in America, but these are just a brand of tea bags, okay, or different versions of tea. So I just cover mine with contact and then Velcro the story or the compliments on that. So we can roll it and throw a story, roll it and have a solution or a consequence, and roll it and have a compliment at the end. So cheap version.
That's great. It's great. I mean, we also use a pool noodle because of LJ's fine motor. So we cut a slit in the pool noodle and then we can put our go fish cards in it. And so that's turn taking or describing the colors and things like that. So, but that's great. I love that.
I've even used a beach ball and put different picture symbols on the beach ball and then have to make conversations or sentences with the ball. So another fun, easy thing.
Yeah. So Jennifer, Jen, you just also reminded me too. One of the things that I tend to do is with his educators and teachers that aren't necessarily AAC Experts.
Another.
Hold on one sec, because you're interrupting, and that's rude. Can you hold on one sec, LJ? I will have cups made, either coffee mugs or cool or coffee, not coffee mugs, but like a taller one with a straw. And I will wrap them and have them made with either the lamp, Words for Life, or you can do it with touch, any of the symbols. And just so that then his teachers of the different classes, science, can at least start to familiarize themselves with the various word locations that he's working with. Because I think a lot of it is not understanding just how complex and difficult this language is, and then to pare it back whatever they're teaching, particularly if it's a word that's not in his device.
Another game is guess. Who gets the person to talk to Sybil I likes to have green hair?
Say that again.
Another game is guess. Who gets the person to talk to Sybil I likes to have green hair?
Who has green hair? The game? I don't know that game. Do you play that at school or with speech? You can turn your speech on now. Sorry, we can't hear what you're thinking.
Person. Looks. Like.
Oh, yes. I can't remember the name of that game. Help me out, any of you that might have played it, where you have to describe the person. It's the family. Are they a family? And you flip the, guess who? Thank you, Dawn. Yeah. But there's a ton of fun games out there, and it doesn't even have to be a game. Sometimes in the early years, when LJ would come home or get off the bus, I would go through his backpack with him, and just the ritual of unpacking the backpack and having his device right there so he could tell me what he did during the day.
4. On. Math. Line. Speech therapist. Therapist is bingo. Just. Make. Makes. A. Slide. With. Different. Word. Words. And. Have. Them. Talk. Around. Them. Another for online speech therapist is bingo. Just make a slide with different words and have them talk around them.
So that concept of descriptive or circumlocution, and then also that segues in with educators, is having his teachers do more descriptive teaching so that they're not looking specifically for the Plains, Virginia, but if LJ describes that area that we're in or that they're studying in Virginia history, that he still gets, acknowledged that he understands the concept. But bingo is great. Yeah, we love bingo. I'll say this other, his speech therapist has done these family tree charts, and I don't know if this is specific to Unity or LAMP, but you could really use any symbol or any icon and then sort of let it branch out and talk about the verbs, the pronouns, the nouns that are prepositions, anything that would be layered underneath, if there is anything layered underneath it. But that's been wonderful to cultivate and continue to expand the vocabulary.
Mike has a question.
Please email me the game that has squares. I do a monthly group, and I am always searching for new games to play.
Could you email Mike? The story cubes, the one with the squares?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
What? What's your email?
We can get Mike's email offline, honey. We will send that to you, Mike.
I think I had a question for Jen. I had typed it in. I think we have a mixture of therapists and family and AAC users here, but I was kind of curious if you had any suggestions on how that help empower families to kind of advocate for the implementation of AAC so early on, because that's definitely something I can help educate families, but I'm a therapist, but providing family centered suggestions I think is great as well.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jen. I would say that there's a few things. I think that families getting involved with, if they're on Facebook, any of the user groups that they, especially early on, might not think to search or look for, but there's one for LAMP, there's one for Speak for Yourself, there's one for Realize Language, there's AAC is where it's at. Like there's a plethora of great users groups that then when you're trying to troubleshoot or just dealing with some of the technology component and it's overwhelming, at least you can sort of reach out, and it's a great way to then connect. For us early on, even though the literacy skills may not have necessarily been all that jazz, having a pen pal that the SLP connected us with through another SLP, they were based in Massachusetts. That was so fun because it not only socially helped expand sort of etiquette and things like that, but then it connected him to another AAC user not here. And it was fun every single time, you know, my email inbox would show that they had written, you know, it was a great fun thing to look forward to. And then we would sit down and write another letter back. And so just that back and forth. And then for advocating early on, you know, I think that having, asking a ton of questions and not really accepting the bare minimum, but really for me, and you know, I early on said, why don't the teachers and the aides have the New Voice Pass software pushed to their devices? They all have these school devices. That is a no-brainer, and it doesn't really cost very much. Things like that could then help inform, and then start to then from that point, you know, making sure there's your second device in the room so that someone can model, or that another child during circle time can take turns, things like that. And I also never hesitated to ask if I could go in at the beginning of the year when he wasn't willing or ready enough to speak to his peers, just to say, he would love to be your friend, talk to him just like you talk to your friends, and here are conversation starters. And do you want him to take a picture of you and you can see it in his device, and just breaking down those barriers.
Let's go ahead and answer the questions who might not be watching this now, but they had written them.
Okay. Well, let's make sure. Jen, did we answer that?
Yeah, I just had one more thing. LJ, maybe you can help answer this as well, because maybe you can tell the rest of the our community about your ImpAACt Voices, because I know that's something a lot of my patients really, they want to meet other kids who are AAC users, and that social piece. I'm only so cool for so many hours. They want to meet other.
OMG, awesome, yes.
Let's say it again.
OMG, awesome, yes.
What does it mean to you? Don't pass the mic. You take them.
I'm going to let my lead admin tell about the beginning.
You're a lead admin. I'm his cameraman, his lead admin. I don't know. I do the laundry. I co-founded ImpAACt Voices during the pandemic. ImpAACt Voices really started from a place of thinking about connecting like AAC users, and just taking advantage of the fact that we were all quarantined and we were all in our homes, and the Zoom platform being super universal and accessible, and just sort of growing it from there. And each month, every second Tuesday and every second Thursday, we have what we call hangouts that are, some are led by a facilitator, another AAC user. Sometimes we have guest speakers, and then on the Thursdays, they're just totally informal chats, like just chat and check in. And Thursdays is also more formal, but shorter duration for younger AAC users, so that they don't feel like they have to last that full 60-minute time frame. So they're smaller. They might have LJ or another mentor there, so that he's initiating the conversations with them and showing them that he's an AAC user just as they are. So we've had about 9 months, and we're going strong, and we hope that we'll be able to take the show on the road, and do some in person at some point. And then who knows, maybe travel and go abroad. We'd love to come to Australia. And just sort of grow it from there, and have multiple hangouts and meetups and things like that, where everybody is able to just make friends and cultivate. I think one of the things that Lance McElmore has said is just how isolated he felt at the beginning, and really doing the sort of skipping all of that and just connecting people, so that there isn't that feeling of being alone, that everybody's together in this, and that we all want to just help each other. So
the social hangouts, are they just in English, or do you have any opportunities, or maybe as you're thinking big, some opportunities for bilingual users as well? Because I have a large population of kids who speak English, but mom and dad only speak Spanish. So just your to-do list.
I love that. And I think as we're thinking bigger picture, we definitely need to think bilingual and multiple languages. I was sharing with you the Unidad user who's using eye gaze. And so, yeah, that's totally, I think we're just still in the infancy stage.
Totally. I pequeño español, a little bit of Spanish, but I have a lot of families who the parents want to be involved, but they're nervous because English is not their whereas
Jen,
is bilingual.
Jen and LJ.
Yeah.
Jen and LJ.
Yes, Bob.
Is there
Bob,
any
use
reason-
your hand too.
Bob, raise your
Bob, use
hand.
your hand too.
Your grandson's calling you out. Use
Oh,
your
I
hand.
don't see the place for raising my hand. But I don't see the place for raising my hand, LJ. But is there any reason your AAC devices can't automatically speak in Spanish or French or Croatian since they speak in English? It would seem like it's no problem for the device, even though it's a problem for the individual.
So the problem is the insurance agent, the insurance companies won't necessarily cover you to have both Spanish and English. They will, that's a great question, but for us, we had to jump through a lot of hoops to get Unidad and Unity. So the Spanish version, so that LJ could go to Spanish class and still learn the Spanish words.
Program.
And I think the languages are limited because
Please.
the programmers don't have that much dedicated time to be able to develop that many languages. Jen, you're shaking your head yes. So
Yeah, I didn't want to jump over you. We see your hand, but a lot of it is
Can I be a speaker at your program, please?
yes, Mike, we would love that.
Can I ask parents and grandparents a question, please? When you learned that JT is different, what were your first thoughts? Can I be a speaker at your program, please?
So Bob, Mike is asking, when you learned that LJ was going to be an AAC speaker, what were your thoughts?
By the time LJ became an AAC speaker, he had already learned a modified sign language. And Jen gave us cards to try to learn that. I don't know whether it's because of our age or whatever, but we've still never learned to follow his sign language speaking. But we knew that this was a special kid, and there were really no stops to what he could possibly do. The remarkable thing, and I'm an engineer, and that's why I say this, is the ability of technology to be able to make him and so many others who are on this chat able to speak and able to communicate and able to show the world that they are whip smart and able to do things that we wouldn't know they were able to do. And I have all these kinds of hopes. That's why I asked this question about languages, because we could take exactly what LJ was doing into his AAC device and run it into Google Translate, and it would come out in Serbian, and it wouldn't be great, but Serbians would understand it. And there's no reason the technology can't do that today. And so I have great hopes that 40 years after I'm dead, LJ will speak to me and show me what he can do and how he's able to walk with, I forget the terminology of devices that they could put on that will exoskeleton devices, and able to speak without a device and without pecking at it with his hands, and be able to be just a full 120% member of society. I'm so excited about what we can do.
Can I say something too?
Oh yeah, who's Dee Dee?
By the time LJ got his device, he's so won our hearts. He is such an amazing human being and has taught us so much about life that I never thought about some of the things, and watching him overcome difficulties and really making lemonade out of lemons.
Hey, give a shout out to his mom.
It's been
who made
amazing.
this all happen.
And to be honest, without a mom and a dad like he has, I'm not sure it would happen, but because they are so determined to have him have a great quality of life, we'll do anything to make that happen in our family. We love you, LJ.
Aw, we love you. I won the jackpot in in-laws.
Just a quick COMMENT. I know. Mid-speak or unity comes in GERM, German, and SPAN, Spanish, and they were working on MANDERIN, but we don't know where that stands right now. Or unity comes in German and Spanish, and they were working on Mandarin, but we don't know where that stands right now.
The Mandarin's exciting.
I think, yeah.
Bob,
I mean,
you're talking, but you're muted.
I think the other interesting topic about the technology piece is now that we do have this Zoom and FaceTime as an opportunity, it's not possible really to have, I mean, we've unlocked the device so that we can use the internet and search the web, but if LJ were to use FaceTime or the Google or Zoom, he wouldn't then be able, he might not see whatever was being presented on it, and he would miss it because he might then be forming some thoughts using the device. So somehow being able to split the screens so that you don't have 5 million device screens in order to be able to do that as an AAC user. Yeah, LJ's shouting out to Brad Whitmoyer, who's got a YouTube channel called AAC Computer Access Guru. And he's wonderful, and he's an AAC user as well. That's what I just said. I just said it. I just told him.
Japan. Japanese. Did they working on Japanese?
So we can go to order our sushi.
I think the what's making it a little bit more difficult with Mandarin and Japanese are that they are tonal languages. So trying to carry that over into a and the voice output is creating a little bit of difficulty, but I know they're working on those and some of the like Urdu, Amharic, or different languages that they've been piloting as well. Yeah. Wilson or Mike, are you still finishing your question?
I know it's 8 o'clock. Just want quick answers, questions the people turned in. I know it's 8 o'clock. Just want quick answers, questions the people turned in.
We got to a lot of them, so we don't necessarily have to go one.
Do you want to write a blog post for me, LJ, with all your answers you didn't get to?
Yeah, he would love that.
I would be happy to have you write one. I think we have one more question in the audience, LJ, if you're up for it, before we say goodnight.
Are you up for it? Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm just getting my mute up. Hi, I'm Alison. I'm from Australia. It's the morning here, LJ. And I'm just starting with AAC with my son, 4. I was wondering if you had any advice for families that are starting out.
Awesome. Best to go to speech therapist.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good plan.
And patience and being flexible and keeping organized. I now have my second 3-ring binder, and it's got tabs that, you know, are for the service calls or, you know, backups that I've done and different things that have changed on the devices, so I can keep track of them. And then I don't know if the app is available to you. It's through Google, but Endless Alphabet is a super fun one that is little monsters, and it's got words, and they'll say the word, and then the letters disappear, and you drag them to wherever it's supposed to go, and then it'll say whatever the sound is that the letter makes. But you know, I also really love the fact that he's code switching, but I don't know what the professionals say on this, but I think having that adaptability and being able to move from an iPad or my phone, which I've always have on me, and then sometimes his device runs out of battery life, so it's just a convenience thing. But yeah. But best of luck to you. And
thank you.
In terms of reaching out and like the pen pal thing is wonderful, and trying to, and I will volunteer LJ here. He would love to have a friend in Australia.
Fantastic. Right? We might need
Yeah.
another year, LJ, but when he's ready, we might get back and do that. Thank you very much.
I preach total communication. Even we use gestures, we use our phones, we communicate in multiple ways. I think it's just as important for an AAC user to have multiple ways in their toolbox. So just keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome. And for Allison, we have some great resources on our website as well about kind of inclusion, and even some great like books that have children who use AAC devices in there, because I think it's great to see for children to see themselves in literature and in other materials as well. So definitely take, give that a look. Good luck.
Yeah.
I think, do we have any other questions, or are we good?
I want to take a minute to thank Jenn and LJ so much for sharing their story and their time with us. We posted some links to the stuff you guys suggested through the chat, and we'll post the recording in our groups. So thank you again, LJ, so much for coming and joining tonight.
Thank you
I'm going
for
to email
having
you
us.
about that blog post.
Thank you for having us. I mean, I think that sharing and just having this level of being able to talk.
How can I watch myself?
Oh my goodness.
How can I watch myself?
This is the question we all want to know. How do I watch myself, right? So LJ, I will email you a link to the recording through your mom's email, so you have a special private viewing opportunity. Sound good? All right.
My email address is lubugsy@gmail.com.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
so much,
you for
guys.
having us.
Have a wonderful night, LJ. We'll talk
Have
to
a
you guys
great week.
soon.
Take care, everybody. Bye.